my job as a journalist, the first bumper sticker I ever got 100 years ago was at a journalism convention. It said, "If your mother says she loves you, check it out." I believe your protestations of love and adoration, but where's the beep?
Veteran TV journalist Deborah Norville. Today on Now I've Heard Everything. I'm Bill Thompson. Have you counted your blessings today? Well, if you haven't, maybe you should, because it could be good for your health. So says the longtime Inside Edition anchor Deborah Norville, who in 2007 wrote a whole book about being thankful and giving thanks and having gratitude, because those things are not just good for the people you are thanking, they're good for you. In just a moment, my conversation with Deborah Norville.
They say what's old is new again. You're about to see if that's true as you listen to an interview from noted radio personality Bill Thompson's 30-year archive. Enjoy.
So here now from 2007, Deborah Norville.
I really wasn't setting out to write a book. I just had a hunch that in my own life things seemed to go better when I focused on what was working as opposed to the often long list of things that were going wrong. But I'm also enough of a skeptic, being a journalist and having been a television reporter for 30 years, that I thought, you know what, you look and see, Norville, if there's anything to it. It may be that it seems better because you want it to be. And the mind can be a pretty powerful thing. So I thought I'd put on the research hat that I use for reporting and do a little reporting of my own. And the question I wanted to answer was the following. Has anyone with credentials, a reputable investigator, actually been able to quantify that there are benefits that come from counting your blessings? And if so, what are they? Simple question. Not easily answered because it's a relatively new field of study. There's a very large and deep body of literature and scientific investigation into what causes stress and what the physical manifestations of stress are and how stress can be such a deleterious impact on the human body. There's a lot less on what causes happiness and what causes positivity and what the physical effects of positivity are. And that's what I was looking for. And the field is actually called positive psychology. And I started going through increasingly arcane academic journals and scientific literature trying to find the answer to that question. And the first significant study that I seized upon was done in 2001. So it is a relatively new body of work. And this particular study was done by Professor Robert Emmons and Michael McCullough, Emmons of UC Davis and McCullough from University of Miami. And what these gentlemen had done was honcho a study that was brilliantly simple but scientifically pure. They took 3 groups of individuals. One group was asked to focus on their benefits, one group was asked to focus on their hassles, the other group focused on life events. Each was asked to write down 5 things that happened that day that would fall into their respective categories. And also simultaneously, they kept kind of a life log of just information about their day. Did they exercise? If so, how long? Were they sick? What was wrong? Did they take a pill? When you look at your to-do list, are you making progress toward reaching it? Personal goals, 1 to 10, how are you doing in terms of trying to accomplish them? And they also had been asked to give the names of 5 individuals who see them on a regular basis. With all of this, after a couple of weeks go by, the researchers went to the associates of the people in the various studies. The folks who were counting their blessings were reported by their friends and associates to be much more pro-social, i.e., they did things for them. They were nicer. They went out of their way when they didn't have to. For instance, if you are working on a project and I'm in the gratitude group, you might be struggling, and I might at the end of the day, even though I don't have to and there's absolutely nothing in it for me, I might offer to say, you know what, I'll stick around and help you get this finished so you can get home earlier. And people were dumbfounded by the niceness factor. They didn't know that those individuals were participating in any kind of particular study. At the same time, the people who were in the gratitude group were reporting themselves to be more optimistic and less pessimistic, which is kind of, you can't really quantify that, so forget that. But they also reported that they exercised more, on average an hour and a half more per week. They didn't get sick as much. They took fewer headache pills. They took fewer Claritins or whatever you take when you got the sneezies. And they reported that they were making a lot better progress toward their goals than the people in the other groups. That got me excited because to me the message was there is something to it and it's measurable.
So can you oversimplify? Can you say, does gratitude cause optimism? Does optimism cause gratitude? Are they both part of the same mix of something else? In other words, where are the boundary lines?
It starts with gratitude, and I would put gratitude in its own separate category because gratitude is defined as that recognition of a blessing or benefit received for which there was not necessarily any deservedness. I am better for having this in my life. It is an other-focused emotion. In other words, I'm grateful for the beautiful sunny day we have. I didn't do a darn thing to make the day sunny. So there's another, in this case, nature or God, or there's another being who's responsible for this. The person who was helped by their associate who stayed late at work, they are benefited by the kindness of their coworker. So that coworker did something for me that I probably didn't do anything. It wasn't a payback. It was an undeserved benefit. And that's quite different from optimism. Optimism can result from the recognition of this. And that's what I think is so interesting in Thank You Power. What I did is, once I saw that first survey, I really got energized and dove deeply into the literature. And not everything passed muster. There was a lot that fell on the wayside. But if it was scientifically valid, if it passed this reporter's pretty persnickety screening process to get in there, then it was something that I considered. And what I wanted to do, and I believe I'm the first person who's successfully done this, is draw a line through the academic literature and the scientifically valid data that's out there that starts with the practice of gratitude and goes through positive affect, which results in greater cognitive skills. You're a better strategic thinker. You're a better negotiator. Your kid will do better on a test. You'll be problem solving. You'll handle relationship issues because you're more creative in coming up with ways to deal with them. It opens up your mind to all the possible solutions that are out there. It also makes you more resilient. People who practice gratitude are more likely to be able to successfully get through the trials and traumas of life than someone who doesn't have that particular tool in their box. And even more incredible is I take that thread and draw it through to stress, something everyone listening to this interview has more than their fair share of, I bet. I argue that you can use Thank You Power to create that positive well-being that actually allows you to physically reduce your heart rate, to physically reduce your blood pressure, to eliminate the number of cortisols in your bloodstream. And I share the data, the scientific experiments that show putting yourself in a positive place mind-wise can actually undo the physical effects of stress.
Does it all begin with, as it began with you, Debbie, say thank you?
It's not so much saying thank you. That is politeness. That is manners. That is something I'm sure everyone listening to your program is well imbued with. I assume all of us are polite and are well brought up.
You're more generous than I.
Well, my mama told me to look on the bright side. But this is different. This is not thank you for holding the door open for me, although I do appreciate that. This is thank you for the opportunity to share this message with your listeners. I am so pleased that you were interested enough to do this, that it lifts me up, it builds me up. That's the kind of thank you.
That is the kind of thank you that is becoming in short supply in our country, isn't it?
Well, I think when you look at the headlines, it's certainly easy to see how it's easy to become ungrateful, how it's easy to become cynical. And frankly, this was a cynic's journey. My job as a journalist, the first bumper sticker I ever got 100 years ago was at a journalism convention. It said, if your mother says she loves you, check it out. Okay, fine, yeah. I believe your protestations of love and adoration, but where's the beef, as Clara Peller would say. I want to see that they are there. And that's what this really is. This is one woman's effort to try to find out what was quantifiable and measurable and real, not the snake oil salesman stuff that's out there, because there's so many platitudes about attitudes, about gratitude, and you just want to barf because there's nothing to it. I've bought the books, I've looked at the books, I've rented them out at the local library, and they're beautiful meringues, so many of them. And you take a big bite, and there's nothing there. It was just air. This is the there, and that's why in the back of the book I have all the scientific citations. So Be as cynical as me. Don't trust Deborah Norville. You go look it up yourself, and you read it in the book, and you will probably walk away going, oh, man, that's pretty compelling stuff.
Is there a spiritual underpinning to everything you're saying?
There is, and I think if you're a spiritual person, if you're Christian, if you're Jewish, if you're Muslim, Buddhist, whatever, if you're a person of faith, whatever your faith happens to be, you are already commanded by your faith to be a thankful person. Every great religion in the world practices thankfulness and thanksgiving as a part of the practice of its religion. So if you're a Christian, this will completely sound totally understandable to you. But remember, faith is defined as the expectation of things for which there's no proof. We take that my thankfulness will result in good things on faith. What I think is exciting here is this is the proof of your faith. Oftentimes faith doesn't have a tangible proof. In this case it does. Now the flip side of that is if you are not a person of faith, and if you're the most confirmed agnostic God put on this planet, you will completely relate to this material too, because this is scientifically valid. It's beyond reproach when it comes to the truth of it, and you don't have to be a God-full, God-fearing person for this to make sense to you. I think I've tried to write it so that this message would be as understandable and as embraceable as possible by the largest number of people.
And I say this very sincerely, thank you for your time.
And I sincerely say back, it was my pleasure.
Deborah Norville is 68 now. This March, she'll celebrate 30 years as anchor of Inside Edition. Now you can get your copy of Thank You Power by Deborah Norville by tapping the link in our show notes, by clicking the link in the description below if you're listening to this on YouTube, or by going to our website, heardeverything.com. We may earn an Amazon commission if you make a purchase. Heardeverything.com is where you can also find my 1990 interview with another prominent personality who wrote a book about gratitude, William F. Buckley Jr.
What we need to do is revitalize the idealistic sensibilities of Americans, and the fact that in the course of doing this, they're helping the poor, helping the aged, that's terrific, but it's incidental.
And my 1998 conversation with another popular morning TV host, Joan London.
I wanted to leave Good Morning America with grace and dignity. I wanted to walk into that last show, that last day, with a sense of gratitude. And everybody, for 2 months before the show, they said, aren't you going to be sad?
And of course, we post new episodes of Now I've Heard Everything every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and you can find us everywhere you listen to podcasts. And thank you so much for listening. Next time on Now I've Heard Everything, he's the son of one of the most notorious figures of the Red Scare of the 1940s and 50s. My 1999 interview with Tony Hiss, the son of Alger Hiss.
I had a chance, I thought, to write about this person I knew. So many people seem to be seeing not a life, but a headline. And perhaps I could introduce them to this man, and then they could decide what they thought about it.
That's next time on Now I've Heard Everything. I'm Bill Thompson.